Myanmar has refuted a report by The Guardian which said the United Nations is threatening to pull out support from Rakhine State to avoid being involved by, we quote, the government's policy of apartheid. The country's Social Welfare Relief and Resettlement Minister tells CNA that the UN had indeed sent a letter to his ministry, but insists that the letter from the head of the UN in Myanmar did not contain anything about the withdrawal of the UN aid.
Well, over 100,000 Rohingya and Kaman Muslims have been living in camps in Rakhine since their homes were destroyed by violence in 2012. Conditions there have been described as unsanitary and squalid.
And according to the Guardian report, the UN is now accusing Myanmar of failing to make good on its 2017 promise to close the camps. It says it won't provide aid until people there are given freedom of movement.
And this is the first known attempt by the UN to adopt a tougher policy on camp closure. Now, for more on this, we're speaking to Leong Wai Kit in Myanmar. Wai Kit, what's the latest you have on the threat of UN pulling out of Rakhine State?
Well, Glenda, I got in touch with UN earlier and they confirmed that they sent a letter dated June 6th to the government, but they did not tell me the details of that letter. On the other hand, the Ministry of Social Welfare, Relief and Resettlement, they got back to me. They confirmed that they received that letter dated June 6th, but its Minister, Dr. Win Myint Aye, told me that that letter did not contain details of UN wanting to pull out of Myanmar's Rakhine State. Instead, Dr. Win Myint Aye gave me an outline of the letter. He said some of the things that UN wrote in the letter was to express appreciation that Myanmar is making progress in developing a national strategy to close IDP camps. Now, IDP is, of course, short for internally displaced persons. So IDP camps are basically temporary shelters that house people who have fled from their homes out of fear of security concerns arising from conflicts. The letter, Dr. Win Myint Aye says, also contained UN's appreciation that allows international actors to participate in drafting that strategy. It also asked the government to stop closing IDP camps in the meantime until the strategy is finalized. Now, let me give you some context as to why this national strategy is so important. Now, when we close IDP camps, there must be international standards, and one of the considerations is that the government must talk to various parties, including and especially people who are currently living in IDP camps. So on that note, Myanmar has held several workshops to organize workshops to allow international actors as well as people involved in closing the IDP camps. Now, earlier on Twitter, Mr. Nat Ostby, he is the chief of the UN's agency in Myanmar, he tweeted online to say that he reiterates UN's commitment to helping Myanmar in terms of closing IDP camps and in terms of helping Myanmar move forward.
So, Wai Kit, give us a sense then of what sort of aid we're talking about that's being provided to Rakhine State at the moment.
Well, a range of aid, Steve, really spanning from hygiene projects, protection services, education, healthcare, food. The UN is involved in various of these aspects, and as you can imagine, there is no monopoly of one agency taking charge of one sector, because you can imagine that giving aid to people is a collaborative effort. So agencies such as UN would be working with other organizations, either global non-profit organizations or local efforts.
All right, many thanks for that. Leong Wai Kit speaking to us from Yangon.